watching this video, you probably already know that I'm Deacon John, and if you didn't, well, now you do. Given the fact that a lot of my regular activities have been cut back due to the COVID-19 crisis, I was thinking I'd like to make a couple of videos. Now that doesn't mean that I'm going to do it on any regular frequency, but if I were you, I would expect that I'll probably do a few in rapid succession and then slow down as my schedule starts to fill out and things start to get normal again. You probably also noticed this barbecuer. That's because what I was hoping to do was do these videos in something like a Franklin Roosevelt Fireside chat format. Of course, I've modified that for Bullhead City. Now today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the first reading from April 24th, which was Friday. And I know what you're thinking, but that date already passed. That's true. And the reason that we didn't film yesterday was because the wind was blowing really hard and it messes up the sound on the video. So this is a reading from Acts 5:24 or 34. But a Pharisee in the Sanhedrin named Gamaliel, a teacher of the law, respected by all the people, stood up, ordered the men to be put outside for a short time, and said to them, "Fellow Israelites, be careful what you are about to do to these men. Some time ago, Judas appeared claiming to be someone important, and about 400 men joined him, but he was killed, and all those who were loyal to him were disbanded and came to nothing. After him came Judas the Galilean at the same time of the census. He also drew people after him, but he too perished, and all who were loyal to him were scattered. So now I tell you, have nothing to do with these men and let them go. For if this endeavor or this activity is of human origin, it will destroy itself. But if it comes from God, you will not be able to destroy them. You may even find yourself fighting against God." They were persuaded by him. After recalling the apostles, they had them flogged, ordered them to stop speaking in the name of Jesus, and dismissed them. So they left the presence of the Sanhedrin, rejoicing that they had been found worthy to suffer dishonor for the sake of the name. And all the day long, both at the temple and in their homes, they did not stop teaching and proclaiming the Messiah, Jesus. Well, first off, I have to apologize. I didn't bring enough for everybody, so I'm not going to bother asking you how you like yours. Now, one of the first cautions that I received when I decided to make these videos was stay away from politics. But this reading is all about politics. The politics that was in play right after the Lord's death and resurrection. You see, the Pharisees made up a small segment of the Sanhedrin, but they were very influential. And when they came to decisions, a lot of times the larger group would just go along with them. On this particular day, there was more emphasis added because it was Gamaliel who had stood up. And he had a reputation. His reputation was that he had been a student of the great teacher Hillel. He was also the son of Simeon. He's the priest that we know from what we call the presentation, when Mary and Joseph brought their newborn child to the temple, and the priest holds him in his arms and says, "Now let your servant go in peace." That was Simeon. Gamaliel was his son. But more than that, he was a respected man in the Sanhedrin, and when he spoke, his colleagues listened. We all know the story. Jesus spent 3 years going around the whole country, teaching and preaching and curing illnesses, and for all practical purposes, his poll numbers were going through the roof. Compare that with the Jewish authorities, who were very corrupt. They had stopped serving the people, and having lost every debate that they had had with Jesus, they were pretty much running a losing campaign. Suffice to say that if there was polling back then, these guys were flatlining. And so they decided to go with the only alternative they could think of. They needed to trump up some charges against him and see if they could get the Romans to execute him. The problem is, this is where it got a little tricky. They were They were hoping to try him and convict him and execute him for blasphemy. But the Romans wouldn't care about that. What would they care about some Jewish religion and some Jewish God? So they said that he claimed to be a king. And see, to the Roman mind, there could only be one king. That would be Caesar. And their plan might have worked except for one thing. The apostles had seen the risen Lord, and they just couldn't stop talking about what they had witnessed. Now Jesus, he was more popular than ever. This made the Sanhedrin angry, and so they wanted to kill the apostles. But that's when Gamaliel stood up, and he gave some advice that was as wise today, or is as wise today, as it was when the day he spoke those words. Simply put, and I'm going to paraphrase, if an endeavor is of human origin, it will destroy itself. But if it comes from God, you will not be able to destroy it. Now, make no mistake, Gamaliel, as a Pharisee and member of the Sanhedrin, would have been one of them that had tried and convicted Jesus. He was no friend of Christianity. But in this case, his reasoning was inescapable because in truth, nothing stands the test of time except the things of God. In the beginning, God said, "Let there be light." Now, I've always thought that he probably wasn't talking about sunlight, because the Bible tells us that he didn't create the sun until the fourth day. And for that matter, why would God need that kind of light anyway? I think the answer can be found in the 43rd Psalm, which says, "Send your light and your truth, that they may be my guide." In this case, light and truth are synonymous because both illuminate the way. And so when God said, "Let there be light," it wasn't because he can't see in the dark. It was because he won't work in anything but the truth. Today's reading reminds me of a story that I once heard about Michelangelo. Apparently, someone asked the artist how he had sculpted a horse. And he said something like, "I took a big rock and I chipped away everything that wasn't a horse." Those Italians, they got that sense of humor, don't they? See, in much the same way, those of us that call ourselves Christian are supposed to allow the truth to chip away everything from our lives that doesn't come from God and leave nothing behind except for the good that he pronounced at creation. And so Gamaliel's words, "If it comes from God, you will not be able to destroy it," should give us comfort in these uncertain times, because we come from God. And while we might have to undergo some trials and some challenges in this world, St. Paul tells us that no weapon that's fashioned against us will stand. For that reason, when our earthly journey ends, we are not made for destruction, but rather to return to the one who created us, the one whose words are true and laws are eternal. Concern with anything else is just small ball by comparison. Well, my video's done. I think these might be a little overdone, and I didn't burn the house down. So until next time, I'm Deacon John, and I'm still doing my part to claim the internet for God.